Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram at Q and Review, that's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com, that's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, May 9. The new era must pay off quickly for Rangers, says Chris Jack. It will be a summer of change at Ibrox. Whether it is classed as a rebuild or a revamp ultimately matters little. What is important, though, is that Rangers emerge stronger from it and are heading into the new season in a better position than they will leave this wretched campaign behind. The work that Michael Beale does in the transfer market will shape Rangers' fortunes and determine his own fate. This is the chance that he has been waiting for since he replaced Van Bronckhorst, and he must make the most of the opportunity that will arrive in a matter of weeks. The Rangers manager must always be the most important and most accountable figure at the club. It is he who drives the standards and sets the ethos around Ibrox and Auchenhowie, he who accepts the praise in glory or pays the price of failure. But those that sit above and beside Beale in the organisational chart are also entering their own time of reckoning. For John Bennett and James Bisgrove, this is their chance to do things their way. It is more than a month since it was announced that Douglas Park was resigning as chairman, and that Bennett, his deputy since Park replaced Dave King 3 years ago, would be stepping up to lead the board. Nothing more has been said in public, but the actions behind closed doors have spoken volumes. The departures of Stuart Robertson, the managing director, and sporting director Ross Wilson have satisfied supporters. Craig Mulholland, the head of academy, will step down at Auchenhowie in the coming weeks, while Andrew Dixon is vacating his role as Director of Finance and Football Administration. It is certainly more than a reshuffle, and it comes at a time when Rangers must regroup and reset. Changes have been overdue for some time now, and breathing space must be given, even at a club where patience is hardly a common commodity, to those that are remodelling Rangers at all levels. Bennett has long been a driving force at Ibrox, and not just in financial terms. His continued and selfless investment has been integral to restoring Rangers' fortunes in a business sense, and it is now Beale that will benefit from the backing of the chairman and the band of money men that remain committed to the cause. The position of chairman is an honour that Bennett will not treat lightly. He understands the office and respects the history, but his rise to the top seat in the boardroom gives him the scope and power to influence the future in an even greater manner. On a day-to-day basis, that process will be overseen by James Bisgrove, promoted from his berth as Director of Commercial and Marketing. Bisgrove will assume the title of Chief Executive Officer when Robertson leaves Rangers at the end of July. Bennett praised the Englishman's outstanding credentials in the commercial department and stated that he was ideally positioned to drive the step change in energy and restructuring that is now underway. A couple of weeks on, that work has been laid bare and will continue. Sooner rather than later, Bennett and Bisgrove will set out their blueprint to supporters. Rather than try to make quick-fire impressions with platitudes and cliches, time has been spent laying the foundations for how they wish to see Rangers run off the park, and how that then feeds into the on-field results that will define their legacies alongside that of Beale. The Bisgrove era can be judged on three key pillars: communication and engagement, financial sustainability, and sporting success. And the coming weeks offer opportunities to win over the doubters within the support. Given how this term has unfolded, Bisgrove has ample room for improvement in all areas, and a new era has arrived at Ibrox. The way in which this regime interacts with the punters and the press will be indicative. Progress has been made in that regard in recent months, and Rangers are moving towards becoming a club that wants to work with rather than work against once again. A fans forum session at New Edmiston House next month is an encouraging sign, and Bisgrove must be more visible and more accountable to those that pay his wages than Robertson has been in recent seasons. A more polished operator in front of the cameras, Bisgrove will be expected to own the failures as well as the successes. Bennett's own concerns over communication were evident in a Rangers TV interview earlier in the campaign, and it is an era and an area the new chairman is keen to improve on, with the first steps set to manifest themselves in the coming days and weeks. That will bring the fans closer to the club once again, and help nurture a feeling that will overlap into the other two main areas of the 9 key priorities that Bisgrove presented to the board. Details on how Rangers plan to further increase the record commercial revenues would be welcomed, as would updates on their relationship with the SPFL following the Singe sponsorship row and fallout from the latest TV deal. Both the chairman and the chief executive understand the value in making friends and influencing people, and Rangers must establish themselves as decision makers and agenda setters at the highest levels in Scotland once again. That process will be easier if Beale can hold up his end of the bargain, and the strength of the relationship between the three will be pivotal. It is Bennett and Bisgrove that will set the bar, and it is Beale that must raise it as he prepares to get down to business and build a squad in his name and his image. There will be no overnight fixes for any of the trio. Immediate improvement is a must, though, as Bennett, Bisgrove and Beale seek to ensure familiar mistakes are not made once again. The rebuild in the boardroom and dressing room is underway. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Time will tell, says Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, May 9. Postecoglou set for special reunion on Japan tour. Report by Ewan Payton. Celtic have announced the first opposition for their summer tour of Japan in the pre-season. The Hoops will take on a familiar side for Ange Postecoglou, his former team Yokohama F. Marinos. The Premiership champions confirmed last week that they would be heading to Japan during the off-season, with a trip to South Korea also on the cards. Details about all the teams Celtic would face in the Far East have yet to be confirmed by the club, but we now know that Postecoglou's men will take on Marinos in the first game of the tour. The Parkhead club have confirmed they will meet the J-League side on Wednesday, July 19 at 11 a.m. UK time. It will take place at the 72,000-seater Nissan Stadium. Postecoglou left his role in Yokohama to join Celtic in the summer of 2021, so it is sure to be an emotional occasion for the Australian. The Parkhead boss said, "I am delighted to be taking Celtic to Japan this summer, and it's a tour made even more special by the prospect of facing my old team. It's a great club that holds some special memories for me, and I look forward to meeting up with friends there in July." It will also be a return to his old club for Celtic forward Dazen Maeda. Maeda explained, "I'm really looking forward to our pre-season visit to Japan, and in particular, returning to play against Marinos. It is a club which has played a major role in my career, and of course, it will be a pleasure to return home with Celtic and see my friends at the club and the Marinos supporters." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 9. Gregor Townsend agrees contract extension. Report by Ewan Payton. Scotland head coach Gregor Townsend has signed a contract extension until April 2026. The 50-year-old's deal was due to expire after the World Cup in France later this year. There had been speculation that the Scottish Rugby Union may be looking to replace him. However, following an encouraging Six Nations campaign, in which the Scots finished third, Townsend, who took charge in 2017, will remain at the helm for another 3 years at least. Being head coach of Scotland is a tremendous honour, and I am excited about the potential of the current squad of players and the game they can deliver against the best teams in the world, said Townsend, who is already Scotland's longest-serving head coach after taking the reins almost 6 years ago. "I also feel the connection the team has with the country is special, and that our supporters are backing the team like never before. The number of people who arrive 2 hours early to welcome the team off the bus on a home match day demonstrates the love shown for this group of players and their belief that the squad can achieve something special. Our focus right now remains on Rugby World Cup preparations, but I am delighted to have secured my future for the next few years and look forward to continuing to do all I can to drive the team forward and inspire our supporters." Scottish Rugby Chief Executive Mark Dodson said, "Gregor Townsend has been the most successful Scotland coach in the history of the professional era, and we believe he is the right man to lead the national team beyond this year's Rugby World Cup. What Gregor has built over the last 6 years of his tenure has taken Scotland to 5th in the world rankings, and we are keen to keep that continuity and forward momentum. The squad has unparalleled depth, which is the result of many years' planned development. We believe he is best placed to take the team to the next level and continue to excite and engage the people of Scotland." Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 10. Adam King conscious and sitting up after collapsing in Alloa game. Report by Ewan Payton. Adam King collapsed on the field of play last night during Alloa's Championship playoff semi-final against Hamilton. The former Hearts man was treated for around 3 minutes by medics as he lay on the pitch. The Indo-Drill Stadium fell silent as paramedics were called on to assist King, who was eventually stretchered off after the incident. King collapsed off the ball at the edge of the box in the 20th minute of the game. It's said that Aki's manager John Rankin was screaming for play to be halted and for a physio to attend to him. Thankfully, he was conscious when he was taken off the pitch and is believed to have spoken to Alloa boss Brian Rice before being taken away for assessment. Luke Donnelly replaced King as a first-half substitute and proved to be the difference maker in the tie by scoring the winner before the interval. Luke Donnelly, who came on as a sub for King, scored in the first-half stoppage time to put Alloa 1-0 up. King started his career at Tynecastle, coming through the youth set-up at Hearts. He went on to play for Swansea, Crewe, Dundee United, Queen's Park and Raith Rovers, before eventually joining Alloa in 2021. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 10. Celtic fans chant raises money for food bank. Report by Morgan Carmichael. Celtic fans have raised more than £15,000 for a Glasgow food bank after their anti-monarchy chant went viral. The Hoops supporters took a stand against King Charles III's coronation with the chant, "You can shove your coronation up your ass." Their vocal protests could be heard when the Parkhead side took on Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final last month. The clip, taken by Celts Are Here, appeared on BBC's Have I Got News For You on Friday, as presenter Alexander Armstrong highlighted that some sections of the country were not happy with the oath of allegiance dedicated to King Charles. The renowned Pointless host then said, or as the Celtic fans put it, before airing a clip of the Hoops fans' chant at Hampden. After being rewarded £200 from the BBC for the clip, Celts Are Here decided to use the money to start a Just Giving page for the local Glasgow North East Food Bank. A Celts Are Here spokesperson told the Glasgow Times, "It's been a collective effort from the Celtic support and many beyond the football world. We have been stunned by the response and generosity shown. Our clip of the Celtic fans singing their displeasure at the coronation has really struck a chord and opened a debate about celebrating and publicly funding the already vastly wealthy royal family. We thought it was only right that the fee we received from BBC's Have I Got News For You went to help those experiencing extreme hardship during an unprecedented cost of living crisis. As Celtic fan media, we take immense pride in the club's charitable roots, and we are delighted we have been able to contribute in our own small way." A Glasgow North East Food Bank spokesperson said, "We are very grateful to Celts Are Here for choosing to support Glasgow North East Food Bank with their initial £200 donation. We are overwhelmed but not surprised by the generosity of the Celtic supporters and other members of the public who have donated. We have been in communication with Celts Are Here and have discussed specifically how we will spend the money to best benefit our local communities. We are extremely grateful for the kindness of Celts Are Here and everyone who donated." The fundraiser has already raised £15,510 so far, which will help feed those in crisis around the North East areas of the city. Report by Morgan Carmichael. Evening Times Sport, May 10. Cholak Rangers transfer latest. Report by Ewan Payton. Rangers will reportedly listen to offers for Antonio Cholak this summer. It's been said that there were clubs in Germany and the United States who tried to swoop for the Croatian in January. Those offers were knocked back by Ibrox boss Michael Beale, who was still getting familiar with his first-team squad at the club since his return in November last year. However, according to the Scottish Sun, Rangers are now open to any transfer offers for the 29-year-old. Beale is set to massively overhaul his squad this summer after another trophyless league season for the Light Blues. The Englishman very much wants to put his own stamp on things, having already drafted in Todd Cantwell and Nicholas Raskin earlier this year. Cholak is the club's joint top scorer this season, after beginning the campaign on fire. He netted 7 goals in his first 9 games, with 17 from 38 appearances in total this term, although there's no doubt the goals have dried up this year, with only 3 to his name. He has been troubled by niggling injuries, with the Croats' last outing coming as a late substitute in the 3-2 defeat to Celtic at the start of April. Cholak arrived for £2 million from POAK just 10 months ago, but it seems his time could already be coming to an end in Glasgow. The report states that it's unclear if Cholak is seeking a move at this time. It claims that it's believed he would be interested in a permanent transfer to the Bundesliga. He has 2 years remaining on his deal. The striker changed agent last month, which we told you was a clue hinting towards a summer move. He is now on the books of super agency CAA Stellar. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 10. Tennis growing psychological burden. Report by James Morgan. Amanda Anisimova became the latest women's tennis player to admit that she is struggling mentally when she announced that she was taking an indefinite break from the game. In doing so, the world number 47 became one of a number of high-profile women on the WTA Tour to go public over her concerns for her mental health, saying that it's become unbearable being at tennis tournaments. At this point, my priority is my mental well-being. The 21-year-old American follows 4-time Grand Slam winner Naomi Osaka in doing likewise. Osaka announced she was taking time away from the sport after the 2021 French Open and has been vocal about her long bouts of depression, writing a candid article about the issue in Time magazine, saying, "We are often sat there and asked questions that we've been asked multiple times before, or ask questions that bring doubt into our minds, and I'm just not going to subject myself to people that doubt me." Meanwhile, Garbine Muguruza, the former world number 1, is another who has also opted for an extended break. Spending time with family and friends, and it's really been healthy and amazing, so I'm going to lengthen this period till summer, the 29-year-old noted, adding further to the belief that the tour can be a toxic environment to inhabit. Osaka's words were thrown into sharp relief by the terse press conference Emma Raducanu gave with British journalists ahead of the Madrid Open. Eventually, a WTA official was forced to call an end to the 16-question interview in which the British number one was asked a number of times about her injured wrist. Was it really any surprise that she retreated into her shell? Too often members of the press believe they have ownership of sports stars. It was particularly prevalent when serial irritant Piers Morgan became embroiled in a spat with Raducanu following her decision to pull out of Wimbledon in 2021 after he said the then 18-year-old needed to toughen up and that she couldn't handle the pressure. The typically tone-deaf Morgan then claimed credit for Raducanu's win at the United States Open a few months later. It is notable that the number one player on tour, Iga Swiatek, has a world-renowned sports psychologist as part of her team, and since uniting with Daria Abramovich, Swiatek has been a dominant force, racking up 3 Grand Slams. Abramovich has her own explanation for why she thinks so many players might be struggling. Perceptions of people who seek help for their mental problems is still an issue in wider society. Psychology in general is stigmatized. Seeking psychologists for help concerns the whole society and not only the sports environment, said Abramovich, who also has some thought-provoking reasons for why tennis is so unique and why players might struggle to adapt to life on tour. She says, tennis is extremely closely connected to business. It's one of these sports where the business aspect is really important, and it is extremely relevant for people to understand how to connect these two areas. The other is that the high performance level is kind of unique. Traveling across the world for 8 to 9 months per year, and you have to go to all these places every single year for sometimes 15 or even 20 years. It's extremely challenging. How to be yourself in it, and how to keep the social support system, and how to enjoy all that for so many years. And while a sports psychologist might not necessarily work for everyone, Swiatek is in no doubt as to the importance of Abramovich in her life. And she said, "She just made me smarter. I know more about sports, and I know more about psychology, and I can understand my own feelings, and I can say them out loud." It can only be hoped that Anisimova finds similar peace during her period of absence, says James Morgan. Evening Times Sport, May 10. Nicholas Raskin Rangers comparisons drawn with Gennaro Gattuso. Report by Ewan Payton. Gennaro Gattuso featured at Ibrox in the budding days of his illustrious career. If Nicholas Raskin can go on to become anything remotely like the Italian on the pitch, the 22-year-old will be on to a winner. Roberto Martinez has drawn comparisons between Raskin and Gattuso in terms of their styles on the pitch. Tough in the tackle, dynamic on the ball, and the ability to go from box to box. It's easy to see where the former Everton manager is coming from. He has praised Rangers for their proactiveness in capturing the Belgian midfielder because he could well go on to play in one of Europe's top leagues in the future. The Portugal boss explained, "Firstly, I think it is a very clever signing. It's a clever signing because he's a player that was highly rated by all the top European clubs, and I think Rangers were very quick in the acquisition, and that shows always a good structure, a good recruitment department, and being ahead of the trends. You need to be proactive to sign players like this. Nicholas was a standout at Standard Liège, and all the teams were following him. Rangers were prepared to take a risk and take the player a lot earlier because he was finishing his contract at the end of the season. He is one of those proactive signings that could be important for both sides. He has the potential to be a top midfielder at European level, and if that development happens at Rangers, then Rangers will benefit. The personality Nicholas has, he is a fighter, a winner, a great competitor. I loved working with him. I only worked with him at one stage, and it was because of the personality that he brings. It reminds me of another former Rangers player, Gattuso. He's got that dynamic approach, being a number 8, that he can be box to box. But he's got the quality when he gets on the ball, and nothing phases him. I don't think every player, or every foreign player, can play for the old firm. Nicholas, without a doubt, is perfectly fitted for that role. And then another aspect that I was always looking for as national team coach is that he is left-footed. In midfield, to have that balance of having a left footer and someone that is competitive, someone that can go in any ground in any big tournament and not be fazed, I think it's been a very intelligent signing. I can only see him growing, and the potential that he has, if he develops the full potential, it will help Rangers and it will help himself. Martinez may have moved on from his role with the Belgian national team, but the 49-year-old will keep a keen eye on Raskin's progress. And the ex-Motherwell player reckons the midfielder is not far off a call-up for the Belgian A-team. He added, I think he's very, very close. Very close because in the lists of the Federation, he was always one of the big potentials at that time. It was Amadou Onana and Raskin in the under-21s as the two midfielders. Onana moved to Lille and then moved to Everton, accelerating his time. But probably the normal step will be the under-21s European Championships this summer, and then the doors are open for the first team. I don't see too much longer. If he carries on being important for Rangers, he'll have a great chance. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 11. Cooper Hearts win Scottish Amateur Cup at Hampden. Report by Ian Summerall. Cooper Hearts won this year's Only Sport Scottish Amateur Cup after an entertaining final against Staines Thistle at Hampden last night in front of a large and noisy crowd. The team from the Kingdom of Fife enjoyed by far the better of the opening 45 minutes and raced to a 2-0 interval lead. Goals from Richie Lawson and Liam Craig gave them that crucial advantage. Staines Thistle, representing the Central Scottish AFL, benefited from the half-time break and resumed clearly determined to haul themselves back into the contest. After 52 minutes, Staines scored the early goal they needed to rekindle their hopes, David Grant confidently converting a penalty, rifling his spot kick deep into the corner. That goal transformed the game. From being relatively one-sided in the first half, play now ebbed and flowed from end to end as Staines drove on looking for the equaliser. There was no shortage of chances at both ends, but neither side was able to add to the scoreline. The closing minutes were tense, with Staines keeper Callum Gray sprinting forward to help contest a corner in the dying seconds. Cooper Hearts held on, with the final whistle sparking scenes of joy as they celebrated in front of the large Fife contingent. Congratulations to Cooper Hearts and Staines Thistle for both reaching the final and for producing a contest worthy of the occasion. And of course a special well done to Cooper Hearts, the winners of the 2022-23 Only Sport Scottish Amateur Cup, said Ian Somerville. Evening Times Sport, May 11. Rio Hatate addresses Celtic party absence. Report by Liam Bryce. Rio Hatate has moved to allay Celtic fans' fears over why he missed Sunday's title celebration at Parkhead. The midfielder, nominated for PFA Scotland Player of the Year, alongside Kyogo, Callum McGregor and Motherwell's Kevin Van Veen, sent the social media rumour mill into overdrive, seemingly inadvertently, after being a notable absentee from the jubilant scenes at Celtic Park. Hatate has been linked with Brighton and Hove Albion, and there were claims he had travelled south to watch countryman and friend Kaoru Mitoma in action against Everton. The Japanese star revealed he did indeed watch the game, on TV at home. Asked what he thought of worried fans questioning where he'd gone, Hatate laughed. "Well, you can leave me alone. It's not a big deal. People are reading too much into it. I had my personal things, so I had to be away from the team. But that's all, nothing else. I wasn't at the Brighton game. I watched it on television in my house. The main thing is that I play for Celtic. This is where I am, and I am focusing on the rest of the games." Hatate described being recognised by his fellow players on his first full season in the Premiership as an honour, and while he believes Celtic, still on course for a treble, can be satisfied with their domestic performance this season, he's already looking to next term's Champions League as an area for marked improvement. He said, "That would be a great thing for my career, to try to impress the other teams. But then, at the same time, they are tough games in the Champions League, so I don't think I can play well in every game. There will be good and bad. All I can do is prepare and try and do my best." After the 6 games in the Champions League group, personally, I think the other teams had better qualities in terms of technique, and they finish when they get chances to score. But at the same time, we kept the ball well. That we think we can do that at the same level. If we can improve our technique, and if we can finish better than this season, then I think we can compete next season. Report by Liam Bryce. Evening Times Sport, May 11. David McCallum blames Rangers' power cut for cup defeat. Report by Chris Jack. David McCallum blamed a first-half power cut for Rangers' dramatic Glasgow Cup defeat as Celtic secured the silverware at Ibrox. Rangers fought back from 3 goals down to give themselves a chance of overcoming their Old Firm rivals and retaining the trophy on home soil. Alex Lowry netted from the spot in the first half, before Zach Lovelace and Tony Weston netted at the beginning and end of the second period to send the tie straight to penalties. Ross McCausland and Graham both missed, before captain Robbie Fraser saw his efforts saved. A Kelsey Ewan miss proved decisive as the Hoops lifted the cup. But McCallum admits it was a series of mistakes in the first half that ultimately cost his side, as Celtic were handed the advantage that Rangers could not quite overcome before the spot kick lottery. McCallum said, "The penalties for me become irrelevant. I know that's where the games are won and lost at the end, but ultimately we had an 11-minute power cut in the first half that put us on the back foot and gave us a mountain to climb. We almost went into our shells in the first half, but in the second half we showed much more personality and an example of how we want to play on and off the ball. We get goals back and ultimately we have numerous chances in the second half to win the game in normal time. That's where the pain hurts, because we could have won it ourselves, and we put ourselves in that position. That's the main frustration, because we've just lost a cup final at Ibrox in our stadium against Celtic. It will hurt the boys right now, but we know where the game has been won and lost. We've not spoken about penalties. We've spoken about how we're going to move forward individually. We cannot put ourselves on the back foot. If you have a bad moment in a game, it can't be that you lose 2 or 3 in that moment of time. We have to be more secure and resilient. I am so pleased about the reaction at half-time, because that did show they have character and personality. They just needed that reset moment. I am so disappointed they have not won the game in normal time. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, May 12. Ryan Kent Rangers transfer exit latest. Report by Ewan Payton. Ryan Kent is a transfer target for 2 Serie A clubs, according to a report. The Rangers winger is out of contract next month and looks increasingly likely to depart Ibrox this summer. Signed for £7 million 4 years ago, the Englishman will leave the club for free as he explores the next options for his career, and he's not likely to be short of these options if reports are to be believed. Italian media outlet Tutto Mercato claim that both Udinese and Bologna are interested in taking Kent to Serie A. The report says the 26-year-old former Liverpool youngster could ignite the summer market over in Italy. Reports in Turkey last week suggested that Kent had already agreed a move to Fenerbahce, but these have not been substantiated since. The likes of Leeds, Burnley and Southampton down south all have the ex-Liverpool kid on their radar. Meanwhile, Rangers have reportedly commenced talks to sign Honduran winger Luis Palma. The 23-year-old has been told he can leave Greek outfit Aris Thessalonica in the summer if their valuation is met. There is believed to be stiff competition to sign Palma from clubs all over Europe. And the Scottish Sun claims that the Ibrox club have stolen the march in the race to sign the attacker. Their report states that Rangers are in talks with Aris over a £4.3 million deal. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, May 12. Lowry has the drive to catch Bale's eye at Rangers. Report by Chris Jack. David McCallum knows that Alex Lowry has all the talent and all the potential required to make a name for himself at Ibrox. Now he has urged the playmaker to prove that he can be part of Michael Beale's plans going forward after a frustrating campaign that has limited his first-team involvement. Lowry burst onto the scene last term and seems set to be a key component of the squad under the guidance of Van Bronckhorst after committing his future to Rangers. The 19-year-old made just one appearance under the Dutchman, and boss Beale has given him a start against Motherwell and run-outs in the wins over St Johnstone and Hearts. Lowry remains one of the most talented kids on the books at Auchenhowie, and B-team boss McCallum is eager to see him go on to establish himself for Rangers. McCallum said, "I think it is clear that Alex is a talent. There's no doubt about that. He has had an unfortunate season where he has picked up some injuries which have delayed him. I think everyone here has absolute belief in what Alex can be. What he has got to do now is get a run of time, games and training where it is uninterrupted, and he goes and flies and performs and people get to see him in a consistent spell. Thereafter, it becomes his responsibility to go and try and make sure, if he does get opportunities with the first team, that he goes and shows what he is capable of doing. But we absolutely believe in what he can be, for sure. I think Alex's point of view is that he is young, and we still have to remember that as well. He will want to play football. That is just a fact of life. He wants to play football for the first team, and that drives him every day. You see him when he comes in. That has been disrupted, and any opportunities he gets to play football, he wants to take it so that he can get back into a position where the manager thinks about him in a way that gives him opportunities. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, May 12. Beale set to clinch move for Chelsea defender. Report by Chris Jack. Michael Beale is poised to complete a deal for Chelsea defender Dujon Sterling as he bolsters his ranks ahead of the new campaign. The Ibrox boss will overhaul his squad in the coming weeks after Rangers were once again left empty-handed this term, following their failed Premiership title bid and defeats to Celtic in both the League Cup and Scottish Cup. Moves for keeper Jack Butland, who is currently on loan at Manchester United, and Norwich City midfielder Kieran Dowell are close to being announced as a host of players get set to head for the exit door this summer. Former Chelsea coach Beale is now set to be reunited with Sterling as the 23-year-old closes in on a move north of the border after a successful loan spell in the Championship with Stoke City. Sterling has also had stints at Coventry, Wigan and Blackpool in recent seasons and has been capped at several youth levels for England. He made his Blues debut in a cup clash with Nottingham Forest in 2017, but will now quit Stamford Bridge to pursue his next move in the game and provide competition on either side of the Rangers' defence. Report by Chris Jack. Evening Times Sport, May 12. Why the sound of silence will be music to Abada at Ibrox. Report by Matthew Lindsay. Lil Abada has savoured many memorable moments during the time he has been a player at Celtic. The £3.6 million signing helped Ange Postecoglou's team to lift the League Cup and Premiership last season, was named PFA Scotland's Young Player of the Year, and has featured in the Champions League group stages, including against defending champions Real Madrid this term. Yet the goals which the Israeli winger has scored for the Glasgow club against the city rivals Rangers at Parkhead have been the undoubted highlights of his stay in Scotland to date. He netted in a 3-0 win over the Ibrox club that helped Celtic to leapfrog their opponents into first place in the league table in February last year, and was on target twice in the first half of a 4-0 mauling of the Govan outfit in September. On each occasion his strikes have sent the 58,000 strong crowd inside the stadium wild. Said Abada, "The atmosphere in the game at the start of this season was unbelievable. It felt crazy with all the fans. I was really happy that we won the game. I also scored against Rangers last season, and it was my first derby game at Celtic Park. The atmosphere that day was unbelievable too. The 21-year-old who returned from a lengthy injury layoff when he came on in the 2-0 win over Hearts at Tynecastle on Sunday that ensured his side retained the Scottish title, knows the reaction will be quite different if he scores against Rangers tomorrow. There will be no away supporters inside Ibrox due to a long-running dispute between the directors of the two teams over ticket allocations and security protocols. But the sound of silence will be sweet music to the ears of Abada, who has once again been shortlisted for the PFA Scotland Young Player of the Year award this weekend. He said, "Every time we play, the Celtic fans come to support us. It's very good because it pushes us to get to the top. For this game, there are no fans, so we need to do the job without them and be focused on doing the job. In the games before, the atmosphere has been unbelievable, but for this one, the best noise will be silence. If it is quiet, we know we are doing well. We just have to do our job like we do every time." The forward is determined to help Postecoglou's team overcome Michael Beale's side tomorrow, even though they are 13 points clear of their nearest challengers, with 4 Premiership games remaining, and cannot be caught. He would like Celtic to go undefeated in all 6 of their matches against Rangers in the present campaign, and also knows that a triumph will keep alive their hopes of posting a record points total of 107. Going into the Scottish Cup final against Inverness Caledonian Thistle at Hampden on Saturday, June 3, a game they can complete their 5th treble in 7 years in, on the back of an extended winning run, is also vital. He said, "For us, every game is important. It doesn't matter who we play. We just want to bring our game to every game to get the 3 points. It doesn't matter if we have won the league already. We just have our targets and want to finish the season strongly. Celtic is such a big club, the best club in Scotland, and in every game you feel the pressure from the fans. You want to win every game to get the 3 points. For all the players, there is pressure. That's the same whether it's the Champions League or other important games. But we stay calm and just do our job. We know what we have to do in every game, and we do it." Abada has performed consistently well for Celtic since arriving in this country from Maccabi Petah Tikva, but he has matured considerably and noticeably off the park in the past 2 years. His English has certainly improved. He was far more comfortable and confident speaking to reporters at the PFA Scotland media event to promote the Player of the Year awards earlier this week than had previously been the case. The departure of his countryman Nert Bitton, who had been something of a father figure to him, for Maccabi Tel Aviv in his homeland last summer, has perhaps forced him to come out of his shell more. He said, "When I came to Scotland, I was 19 years old. It was very different for me, a different country with no family around me, and sometimes it was difficult. I was alone here without my girlfriend or anyone else. But I had Nert Bitton here with me at Celtic, and he really looked after me. There are also a lot of Israeli people in Glasgow who helped me and made me feel good here and happy here. I now feel my language is better. It was difficult when Nero left Celtic because he was the one in the dressing room I had the best relationship with. After he left, it was a little bit sad for me, but it also helped me speak with the other boys and work on my English with the staff. It made me do other things that I didn't do before because Nero looked after me. I don't have Nero of his family helping me like they did before, but I'm okay. I feel good. My girlfriend is here with me now, and that helps. I still speak with Nero a lot. He watches all of the Celtic games because Celtic is in his heart. We speak a lot, and sometimes he tells me what to do and what not to do. He thinks he's the coach, but my relationship with Nero is still very good. I really love him. Abada has not been short of assistance on the football front either. He feels that playing against RB Leipzig, Real Madrid and Shakhtar Donetsk and being coached by former Champions League winner Harry Kewell has helped him to develop as a player in the past 10 months. He said, "I work with Harry a lot and it's a big help. We do extra sessions after training and we look at what we need to improve on and do better. He looks after us and it's very important. I think quicker now. In the Champions League you don't get too much time on the ball, so you have to think very fast. I think I have improved that side of my game. I work on that in training and it's helped me a lot. The staff and manager has helped me improve on that and get better." Abada's form has led to him being linked with moves away from Celtic this summer, including to Dutch giants Ajax. The Parkhead club would make another tidy profit if they were to sell him on. His focus, though, is firmly on the final 5 matches of the season and nothing else. He said, "Right now I'm Celtic. I don't really care about any of the things being said about my future. I just care about giving 100% in training and in games. I am happy here, and that's the most important thing. We have won the league, and we have the next target to win the Scottish Cup to complete the treble. That is our focus, to complete our target. I don't care about anything else." Report by Matthew Lindsay. Evening Times Sport, May 12. SPFL failing to sell excitement of our game properly, says James Morgan. It has been a mixed week for the SPFL and Scottish football as a brand. On the one hand, the conclusion to the championship season was a thrilling affair when the identity of which team would be promoted, which would make up the play-off spots, and which might be relegated, changed on a number of occasions. Nothing wrong with that, you might say, with some justification. Dundee, the team that emerged from Friday night's action with the best prize of the lot, were subsequently celebrating again when their boss Gary Bauer picked up the Championship Manager of the Season award for the expert way in which he steered the Dens Park outfit over the line. An hour later, though, a missive on Dundee's official website confirmed the 51-year-old's exit, thus bringing an end to a couple of days' worth of speculation which suggested Bauer would be returning to England with former club Blackpool, just relegated to Sky Bet League One, the likely destination. EFL 1, SPFL nothing. Speaking of which, it is less than a week since the EFL and Sky Sports announced a massive television rights package amounting to almost £1 billion for the rights to broadcast live games in England's second, third and fourth tiers over the next 5 seasons. It's a figure that totally eclipses the £150 million that the SPFL negotiated with the same broadcaster last year for an extension to its package that would further cover the period 2025 to 2029, but with more matches on offer to the broadcaster. EFL 2, SPFL nothing. Later on yesterday's afternoon, at the press conference to announce the PFA Scotland Player of the Year award nominations, Rio Hatate was asked about the rumours linking him with Brighton and Hove Albion, and while he seemed to dampen the fires around the idea that he is set to leave Celtic for England this summer, it was hardly the most convincing rebuttal, according to the journalists who were garried there. To make matters worse, Kyogo, his fellow Japanese international at Celtic, was equally circumspect when asked about where his immediate future lay. He said cautiously, "I am just focusing on the games that are left, because we still have the cup final to play. So I'm just focusing on where I am, and I'm not thinking about the future." Of course, it might just have been lost somewhere in translation, but would it really come as a major surprise if two players on the short list for Scotland's Player of the Year award headed off to England in the close season? It's not as if there is not a precedent for these kind of things. A third nominee, Kevin Van Veen, also gave a strong hint that this might be his final season at Motherwell, revealing that he almost left the club for China in January. Which brings us to the Scottish Cup final, which you could not have failed to notice has been moved to the rather inconvenient time of 5:30 p.m. on Saturday, June 3, thus making it a logistical nightmare for Inverness supporters, with only one train home on the Saturday evening and one that leaves Glasgow at 7:30 p.m. The supposed logic for this change is that it will allow television viewers to watch both the Scottish Cup final and the English FA Cup final, which kicks off at the same time, but there has been nary a thought given to match attending supporters. Now, let's look back at Friday night's Championship denouement. It was a night of tempestuous seesawing action. Let's recall too the first round of fixtures in the SPFL promotion and relegation playoffs earlier this week, matches that produced a grand total of 26 goals in 5 games. Some newspapers neglected to even carry reports for these fixtures. There seems to be an all too ready willingness to accept that the game here is a poor second cousin to what goes on down the road. And yes, there might be a gulf in quality, but there is not a lack of interest. The statistics tell us as much. Once again in 2022-23, attendances have been through the roof. At the latest count, with 4 games still remaining in the Premiership, the figures 4,019,340, according to Transfermarkt, are well on track to smash last year's tally of 4,082,038. In short, the natives can't get enough of the Scottish game. If only the powers that be felt the same way and were able to convince broadcasters of its unique selling points. After all, it is the league that first brought some of the Premier League's favourite poster boys, such as Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson, to prominence. Maybe if the people tasked with selling the league's virtues did so a little more effectively, there would be a TV deal worth talking about in place, even one that was a mere fraction of that which the EFL has just negotiated with Sky Sports, instead of that which will give Scottish clubs £30 million between them for 4 years from 2025 onwards, would be a start. Maybe then quality would improve, Interest would peak, viewing figures would go up. Or is that too much like common sense? Asks James Morgan. Evening Times Sport, May 15. 30 years on, Celtic legends recall the jungle's last stand. Report by Graham McGarry. When speaking to Celtic fans and former players about the jungle, the memories recounted are overwhelmingly warm, sometimes disconcertingly, quite literally. I once saw a guy a bit worse for wear relieving himself down the leg of the boy in front of him. Frank Morris, lifelong Celtic fan, tells me over a pint at Molly Malone's on Glasgow's Hope Street as he breaks into a smile. What a place! What a place indeed! It may be difficult for Celtic supporters of a certain vintage to believe, but today marks the 30th anniversary of the Jungle's last stand, the final league match ever played in front of a terracing that will forever be a part of the club folklore. Though in some ways, when comparing the conditions encountered there to the matchday experience these days, it feels very much like a relic of a bygone age. It was some place, says Frank McAvenny, who stood on that same terrace as a fan before becoming the darling of the jungle as a player. Typically, he scored in the game that marked its demise along with Paul McStay, a 2-0 win over Dundee. He added, "You couldn't move in the jungle. It was great. It was barbaric compared to today. You'd see boys peeing beside you and having a carry-out. You grew up very quickly. It was interesting to say the least. But I loved the jungle. I grew up in the jungle. My dad used to take me as a boy into the Celtic end, and as I got into my teens, he used to let me go into the jungle. In those days you could blag your way through, but I had to be back 15 minutes before the end to the Celtic end. Tommy Burns used to say to me when I arrived that none of them had ever stood in there. Everybody knew my story, that I hadn't played football really until I was 18 or 19. I was a proper fan before I was a player, and it made me appreciate the fans more because of that." Gordon Marshall also took to the field that night against Dundee. He experienced the feeling of being a hero and a villain in the eyes of the jungle, not only by dint of the fact that he played in front of it as an opposition and a home player, but also at different points of his Celtic career. Said Marshall, "When you go there and it was your home ground, wow, what a noise. When you look back at it now, you would see it as old and decrepit, but there was so much history, so many people that used to speak to you about what it was like to be in there." Certainly, for a player, the noise was just incredible. It was brilliant. Probably at that point the fans were singing my name, so it was a nice feeling. Latterly, not so much. It was absolutely brilliant the first time you heard the jungle singing your name. That side of it was quality, and if you're a Celtic fan, that went there, it must hold incredible memories. I remember going in there for Pat Bonner's testimonial, and the place was absolutely rammed, and I think they announced the official crowd as about 25,000. There were about 25,000 fans in that section I was standing in alone. It was a really lively place. Just to experience the noise that came from it, it was a totally different level from where I had come from. It's a different type of challenge when you go there as an opposition player and you have to face a section like that and a stadium where 99% of the fans are Celtic supporters. As a visiting player, it was very intimidating. When you are a Celtic player, it is exciting because they are all cheering for you. Well, the team. So I've seen both sides of the coin, but the jungle holds nice memories for me. When it comes to a standout memory for the goalkeeper, there can only be one. When they started singing "You'll Never Walk Alone," there was nothing better, he said. We used to travel up to games in the team bus, and that would be the music we would have on the stereo. But there was nothing like when you ran out of the tunnel and they were all singing it. What a noise and what a scene. You just saw green and white all over the place. Being lucky enough to be out on the pitch and see that was something I never take for granted. There are a lot of people who have played football who were never lucky enough to be in a position to enjoy that. I feel really quite privileged about that. Perhaps even more so than for the action on the pitch, the Jungle's last stand is remembered for an infamous fancy dress competition held on the day, with the show stolen by a man in a parrot suit, brandishing a banner which read, "I'm as sick as a parrot," over the prospect of seats in the Jungle. If the board's attempt at creating a carnival atmosphere at the end of an abject season fell a little flat, the presence of club greats taking their own bows in front of the Jungle hit the right note, adding to the emotion of the occasion. McAvenny said, "The day kind of felt as if it was the beginning of the end of that old era. Everyone knew it had to come down. It was great for us as fans. It was great for the team. But it was time." They all walked over to the Jungle after the game, the real greats. It was just incredible. It was Jimmy Johnson, Dixie Deans, Bobby Lennox, John Clark, the gaffer Billy McNeil. All these great players just saying cheerio. I remember thinking that we didn't deserve to be walking by with these boys. The Jungle loved wee Jimmy because he was a winger and he entertained them. I remember saying to Jimmy once that I used to stand in there, and he couldn't have because he was too wee. He wouldn't have seen a thing. But it was great to just walk round and get your final farewell in front of the Jungle with all these greats. As a fan himself, McAvenny's abiding memories of the Jungle will surely chime with those supporters who stood there alongside him and for generations before. The matchday routine, and above all else, the memories of the people who shared in it. He said, "When I think about the Jungle now, I think about my dad. My uncle would take the car and park up where the forge is now, and we'd always walk through the graveyard to get to Celtic Park. Then, when I was 14 or so, getting to go into the Jungle for the first time. Those are incredible memories. The Jungle may be long gone, but those memories never leave you." Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, May 15. Aberdeen reject Conference League invite. Report by David Irwin. Aberdeen have rejected the invitation to express an interest in enrolling a B team in the newly created Conference League. SPFL clubs were approached to declare any interest in submitting a B team for the division which is proposed to sit at the 5th tier of the Scottish football pyramid. The league is due to come into action in 2024-25 and be made up of B teams alongside 2 Highland League clubs and 4 Lowland League sides. But Aberdeen will not form a B team for the league setup after reviewing the obligations and additional costs, estimated at £400,000. A club statement confirming the decision read, "All 42 SPFL clubs were invited to express an interest in enrolling a B team in a newly created Conference League proposed to sit at the 5th tier of the Scottish football pyramid. The new league, due to start in the 2024-25 season, would include several B teams, 2 clubs from the Highland League and 4 from the Lowland League. B teams would comprise a majority of Scottish under-21 players, with the stated ambition of providing competitive, meaningful game time for emerging players in the developmental years between the youth academy and first team football. Aberdeen FC has carefully reviewed the detailed criteria, including a mandatory financial contribution and the expectations around what a B team infrastructure would look like in terms of additional players and support staff. Senior members of our executive, together with the chairman and our football management and development staff, assess the benefits and feasibility of being involved in this new league. At the conclusion of that exercise, the club has decided to reject the invitation. Chief Executive Alan Burrows explained, "We spent considerable time assessing the impact on our player development strategy, including the player pathway, and reviewed the cost/benefit of entering a B team in the Conference League. We also took account of feedback from our other stakeholders, supporters, and considered the decade-long relationships we've had with Junior and Highland League clubs, including clubs who are now established in the SPFL. The player pathway challenge we would face with a team in the 5th tier is that one size does not fit all. We have young players who need experience at higher levels in the pyramid. To accommodate that and have a full-time B team, we would need to have around 55 full-time players. We estimated additional annual costs of around £400,000. While we have said no to the SPFL and Scottish FA about entering the proposed Conference League in 2024-25, we are keen to explore other options, such as a strategic partnership with another SPFL club, where expanding some of the loan regulations would be key to ensuring Aberdeen FC continues to be one of the best developers of young talent in the country. We will therefore continue to push our best young talent to our first team as quickly as possible, along with using the loan market to provide player pathway experience, which has been impactful for the club over many years." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, May 15. Glasgow Warriors transformation gives Smith welcome headache for final. Report by Stuart Bathgate. The road that has taken Glasgow to Friday's Challenge Cup final against Toulon in Dublin began in Bath, not only in the sense that the match at the Recreation Ground on December 10 was the start of this season's tournament for the Warriors, but more importantly, because it provided the first real evidence of the squad's transformation by Franco Smith, a transformation that explains how they have managed to reach their first European final in the South Africans' first season as head coach. Up to that point, Glasgow had played 8 URC games under their new boss, winning all 3 of their home fixtures, but losing 4 out of 5 on the road, their only away success coming at perennial no-hopers Zebra. So when Smith named what looked like a seriously understrength squad for the trip to the West Country, partly because of a lengthy injury list and partly through choice, it appeared all too probable that another away defeat would ensue. The South African thought otherwise, of course, and after announcing his 23, insisted that the group he had selected would bring some special energy to the occasion. Well, we did not doubt that they would be energetic enough, but special. How could a Warriors squad without the Fagerson brothers, Jack Dempsey, Rory Darge, George Horn and Sion Tupulutu be expected to compete? Smith had an answer to that too, and he said, I think the Glasgow supporters and Glasgow people got too used to just one group of players playing. That's not what it is about. Everyone in the squad must compete for us to become a great club. To become a great team, you must have a very good squad. On the day itself, Smith was completely vindicated, as the Warriors won 22-19. 5 months later, they have won all but 3 of their matches since. They are not a great team yet, but they are a greatly superior side to the one that ended last season in such sorry fashion under Danny Wilson, and they are well on their way to having that very good squad of which Smith spoke, which surely makes selection for Friday's final all the more difficult for the head coach and his assistants. Yes, it is the last and biggest game of the season, so there will be no need for rest, no reason for rotation. Instead, you simply want to get your best 23 players out there. But who are Smith's best 23? Tom Jordan would be one, but the standoff is banned after being sent off in the URC quarter-final defeat by Munster. Domingo Miotti looks like the logical choice to take over at number 10, as his style of play is more suited to Smith's approach than is Duncan Weir's. But before the Munster match, Smith insisted that his backup standoff was Stafford McDowell, who began the game at 12. Playing McDowell at 10 from the start against Toulon would be a massive vote of confidence, yet perhaps an equally sizable risk. Having him as backup rather than a specialist 10 on the bench is more plausible, especially given Smith's preference for a 6-2 split among the replacements. In games prior to that Munster match, the two backs replacements were usually a scrum half and a standoff. Against the Irish province, they were scrum half Ali Price and Hugh Jones, who is primarily a centre, but is almost equally at home at full back, the position in which he replaced Ollie Smith in the second half. Such versatility is not so important if you have 3 substitute backs, but with only 2 it can be a telling factor. But can Smith afford not to start Jones, who created the Warriors' only score of the Munster game, a try by captain Kyle Steyn? Perhaps the best choice would be to have a midfield of Miotti, Tuipulotu and Jones, with McDowell covering all 3 positions from the bench. When it comes to the pack, the most difficult choice may well be which hookers to include. George Turner sat out the Munster match, but is likely to return to face Toulon, which would leave Smith with a very difficult choice between Johnny Matthews and Fraser Brown. Matthews is in the form of his life. Brown has experience in abundance, and both men may just have a point to prove after being left out of Scotland coach Gregor Townsend's World Cup training squad last week. Brown would be the safer, more predictable selection, but Matthews' exuberance would ask different questions of the French defence. The coach faces similar conundrums elsewhere in the team, in what is a headache of his own making, given his success in deepening the squad over the past 9 months. Whoever he picks, let's hope they bring that special energy to proceedings again, says Stuart Bathgate. Evening Times at Sport, May 15. More to come from both him and his team, vows Scotland rugby coach. Report by Stuart Bathgate. Gregor Townsend will have been Scotland coach for 9 years by the time his new contract extension expires, a pretty lengthy time for a senior post these days. But the 50-year-old is in no hurry to move on to pastures new, And at an age when many coaches think of swapping a tracksuit for a blazer and a new life as a sports administrator, Townsend believes that he still has a lot to give as a coach and that coaching still has a lot to give him. "I love the job," he said after signing that extension, which runs until April 2026. "There's challenges, ups and downs with it, but it gives me a huge sense of purpose. And more than that, the people that you work with give me joy. I love coming in and spending time with the coaches. We've got a real good dynamic within that coaching group of people that are very good at their jobs, really good at collaborating, but also like a laugh. I really enjoy that side of it. I feel that there is more to come. We have shown a way of playing that the more we spend time together and start to refine it and get more accurate, then the results will grow. I'm sure every coach will say that, but I really believe in this group that we have that. They can do that. What I didn't think was that I was going to get a contract extension. I had chats with those close to me. I said to my wife, I said to others, that I wanted to stay in coaching. This hasn't put me off not being a coach. Where that would end up, who knows? I'm delighted it's ended up here. But I feel that's what gives me the drive. I think about it a lot. It gives me huge purpose, especially this job more than any other. And it might be hard to get that same sense of purpose in a different job when you've been a Scot working with the national team. But I still get the joy of coaching again. But that's for another day. Around the turn of the year, when it was uncertain if Scottish Rugby would offer Townsend a new deal, there were a couple of indications of interest from France, one from the national team, another from one of his former clubs. The one from the French national team just seemed the timing was strange. I think it was in mid-December and it was like, "We're going to be playing you guys in a month's time," says Townsend. So there was no way there was going to be any more commitment to that. And it ended up just being more a conversation about coaching. So I never really thought about that again, because we were in France. And once you got onto the Six Nations, that was the big focus. So nothing really evolved after that. I think if there wasn't going to be a contract offer here, then yes, France would have been an option, maybe at club level. It was a time where I had really good memories from playing, and obviously the French club game is thriving just now, but there was no need to start thinking down that path much more. Townsend has always been interested in taking new ideas from other sports, and recently visited Celtic's training ground at Lennoxton to chat with manager Ange Postecoglou. He thinks the champions and his own team have a few things in common. He says, "It was good. I watched them train. They were very welcoming. Ange had met me before training, and then I went to his office for a couple of hours chat about coaching philosophy and his coaching journey. It was great, just getting his philosophy on when he comes to a new club and what he's looking for. It was good. You pick up things, even picking things from their training. Many things in the back of your mind get reignited. And I believe you take similarities away. They've got a game that they believe in, and we've got a game that we believe in. It's high-paced attack. It means that the guys have to be skillful, fit and accurate. When you can get those things right, you can cause the opposition problems." Report by Stuart Bathgate.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.